Hey, hey guys. So I'm Ashley Nicole Kirkwood. I am the owner of Mobile General Counsel, which is a law firm. I'm also the owner of Speaker Rate Cash, which is a brand that helps speakers book paid speaking engagements. But today I'm coming in a brand new capacity. I'm coming in the capacity of a new mom. And I'm super stoked to be here and kind of talk you guys through my experience giving birth during COVID-19 and what that looked like for me. I wanted to do this video closer in time to when I gave birth, but I have not had time. So if you're joining, just say hi. I have not been on here live in a while, but I was talking to a woman who owns or who runs a group of moms, like for a group of thousands of moms, and I told her I would do the video just to help out with some of the things that they may be feeling. So I wanted to make sure that I did this video. Okay, so who should watch if you know someone who's pregnant? Specifically in Chicago, because I'll be talking about the policies of the hospital that I was at in Chicago and what the virus looks like in Chicago and some of the policies that we pregnant mommies in Chicago are dealing with, or in the Illinois areas more specifically. So if you know anyone who this is relevant to, then tag them below. I'm happy to answer questions. It'll take me time to get back to people just because I did just have a baby and I'm trying to figure out my new schedule. My husband's with her now, so I have like some time to do this. But yeah, so first, because I put up here all the things that I'm going to talk about. First things first, I gave birth on May 5th, 2020. And at that time in Illinois, we were under strict quarantine. So no one in, no one out. You could only go to the grocery store. But for me, about 2 months before I gave birth, not 2 months, probably 3 to 4 weeks before I gave birth, my husband and I both stopped going to the grocery store. We both stopped going anywhere. Like we didn't go anywhere. And my family would drop off groceries, or we would use Instacart, which is a great tool that'll deliver your groceries, or Uber Eats, or I was really cooking almost every day. I cooked almost every day up until the day that I gave birth. But I wasn't going anywhere, and it was that serious. Sorry. And it was that serious for me to not go anywhere. Hey, Auntie Dana. Hey, Sequina. Hey, Lauren. It was that serious for me to not go anywhere because I learned, one, hospital policies are changing all the time. But my doctor, Dr. Wendy Goodall, who I highly recommend if you're in Chicago, she's an OBGYN. She's outstanding. I believe she went to Northwestern. I'm a huge fan of Northwestern, obviously, because that's where I went to law school. But she's a very good doctor, a Black woman doctor, which to me is always good, because I just felt like she was very, first off, she's just very cool. She's very cool. So it was great to work with her. But she had told me that if you were diagnosed with COVID, they would separate mom and baby at birth, and you would not be able to see your child, or you wouldn't be able to, interact with your child for, I think it was upwards of 14 days. That was petrifying to me, that thought, even the thought of that. So I was doing everything I could to stay home. And my husband and I were blessed that we both worked from home, so that wasn't a problem. Me owning a law firm, him working in the nonprofit space, they had switched to everything being virtual. So I know that not everyone can do that, but that was what we were on. So if you don't have to leave, I wouldn't leave the house. And there was no one visiting us or anything. And, I wanted, first off, both me and this is our first child. We didn't have a baby shower in person. We did a virtual baby shower. It's on my YouTube channel if you're looking to do a virtual baby shower and want to see how that went. But it was a lot of different emotions that I experienced going through this, going through the pregnancy at this time. One of them, because my husband comes with me everywhere. He comes with me everywhere. And he could not do that during this. He couldn't do that. And he couldn't do that because they weren't allowing husbands to come into even the doctor's offices. And so it went from him going to every single doctor's visit that I had while pregnant to not being able to go to any of the visits. So we were able to FaceTime for a couple of weeks. And then the office said we couldn't even FaceTime during the ultrasound. So he was just kind of like in the car downstairs waiting on me to get out of the doctor's office. And we had to wear masks, of course, and all of that. But it wasn't ideal. It wasn't ideal at all. And it wasn't really a fun thing at all, but we had to just do it. Now, he couldn't be on FaceTime during the ultrasound, but he could be on FaceTime during the actual visit. So I had him on FaceTime during the visits. And to the degree that they were like, okay, you could take a video during the ultrasound, I would do that for him as well. So having your partner, your support person be as involved as they can be is really important. And I think that you should ask at every single level, what can you do? So if they say no to video, can you take pictures? If they say no to pictures and video, can he be on the phone on speaker? Can he like literally push back on what are the ways in which my husband can be involved in this process? Because the first thing that I experienced, and that he experienced as well, but he didn't like, was that when this whole thing happened, it was automatically like, okay, well, dads are out. Like dads may or may not be in the birthing room, dads may or may not be in the doctor's office. And one, I'm on his insurance, but two, it's his baby too. It's his first baby too, and he wanted to be there. And we both live together, we cohabitate, so there's not any risk that I'm exposed to that he's not. So in terms of safety, it didn't quite make sense to me why that was the rule of the day, especially when they weren't testing me at every visit. They were just doing this whole temperature check, which could have easily been done for him, but neither here nor there. Check your doctor's office's rules about that. Hey, Michelle, how are you? So check those rules, see what's up with that. So the doctor's visits, that was honestly, doctor's visits, labor and delivery, recovery. The doctor's visits were my least favorite part because my husband couldn't be there. For labor and delivery and for my recovery, he was there the whole time. And so for me, that gives me a lot of comfort. That being said, to any new mamas out there, or to people who are supporting moms who are going through this time, I personally believe that people don't know what to say to pregnant moms during this time, and to anyone during this time. And people would say things that weren't necessarily helpful. You should probably just be as positive as possible, but not like, oh, it'll be okay, or you'll get through. Like, just, if you don't know what to say nothing. But the best thing you can say is like, hey, if there's anything I can do for you to support you during this time, please let me know. But I'm super excited about this new journey you're about to take. Because for me, people are just like, oh my God, I cannot imagine what you're going through. It must totally suck. Like, I had a bomb baby shower. I can't imagine not having a baby shower. Like, that stuff isn't the most helpful. But for the moms that are going through it, because some of you are pregnant who are viewing, make sure you stay positive and that you keep your faith up. So the doctor's visits, you wear a mask. I couldn't bring anyone with me, but I had a really dope doctor. That also made it a lot better, having a doctor that I trusted. And I switched doctors 7 months in, because my first doctor, I just wasn't really, she was okay, but you had to trust everyone in the practice that you would be okay with any of them giving birth to your child. And I wasn't. So 7 months in, I switched to Loop OBGYN and had Dr. McDonald as my doctor, and she was awesome. And if you don't know who she is, you can look up Dr. Every Woman. She also makes music videos to explain different things about women's health. So she's just super cool. So that's the doctor's visits. My doctor was great. Didn't necessarily love some of the other things that I was dealing with, but my actual doctor was amazing. And I'm a full proponent to switch. If your doctor is not doing what you need them to do, and you don't trust that them and anyone in that practice who's going to deliver your baby would be the best person for the job, then you need to switch. I switched late. It wasn't a big deal at all. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, because Dr. McDonald is like really, really, really good. And I'm going to tell you more about why she's so dope when I talk about labor and delivery. Okay. So yes, Laquita says Jerry has only heard the heartbeat once, and that was only because I had to unexpectedly go to labor and delivery for monitoring. Yep. I mean, we got it. It's not ideal, but we will. I had to be very deliberate about being positive during this time, because I didn't want to fall into being really sad. That stated, there were a lot of moments during probably the third trimester to delivery, maybe 2 months, that 2 month period where, like, because after March, the 1st of March, COVID was like, oh, I was out there, but not like, you can't leave your house or you will die. It wasn't there, right? But it got there middle of March. And so at that time, it was very difficult for me. And the biggest one, there were a couple of big challenges. One, Chris not being able to go to visits. That was a huge blow. That was like, oh, I was in tears. 2, my mom not being able to be in the delivery room was a huge blow. 3, Chris's mom not being able to be in the delivery room was a huge blow. Because 1, this is my first. Christelle is every first and only that we are planning for. You know, God say the same. That's our plan, was we are going to have this one baby girl, and this is going to be what we do. And I wanted my experience to be what I wanted it to be. But for someone like me, who is very, I don't know if controlling is the word. My husband would probably say controlling is the word. But for someone who's very planned, orchestrated, controlling, like, we took all the classes, I read all the books, I studied like everything you could read, get your hands on. I was reading studies. I mean, I like things to be laid out and in order. For someone who likes that level of control, to not be in control at all is hard to grapple with. But this is where, for me, my faith had to come in, and what I believed had to come in, and trusting that, you know, God's plan is the best plan, and whatever, nothing happens to me, everything happens for me, even when it looks like things are bleak. So I had to keep that in mind. And that was just something that I repeat over and over and over and over again. Even during COVID, nothing happens to me, everything happens for me. And that is something that I say to myself to keep going in darker times. Okay. So doctor's visits, that's what it was. You wear a mask, your husband can't come, et cetera, et cetera. Labor and delivery. This is the thing that's a little bit more important. One, you should know your hospital policies. Two, make sure you get your power of attorney stuff worked out. Even if you're married, because Chris and I have been in a situation previously where it's like, you know, he, for whatever reason, he wasn't allowed back in the room. He wasn't allowed to make decisions for me. And if we would have had our paperwork in order previously, not this time, it would have been so much better. So make sure you have all of your power of attorney, medical power of attorney, make sure you have all of that down packed. But the other thing that I spent time doing that I think is critical for you to do, know the key drugs and the key avenues that your birth can go down, right? So cesarean section, what does that look like? What are some warning signs of that happening? What are the drugs that they give? Know the names of those things. That way, when you hear them in the hospital during labor and delivery, it's not the first time. So the things that I looked up and I wanted to know the side effects of were like Pitocin, epidural. Those are the two big things, the epidural and Pitocin, and what were the drugs they may give if they had to induce labor, and in what instances was an induction medically necessary, and in what instances was it elective. Those things were very important for me to know, because I wanted to have a birth as natural as possible. But full disclosure, when I got there, so I went to the hospital 3 times. The first time, I don't think I was dilated like at all, like maybe 1 centimeter, but the contractions to me felt serious. Like I was like, this is it. I am about to have this baby. And this was 3 days before she was born. Okay. So I go back home the next day, contractions all day. I'm timing them, you know, I'm Googling stuff like what's the difference between these contractions and labor contractions. And if you all have any questions about this stuff, you know, let me know. So the second time the contractions were bad, but it still wasn't go time. They were like, okay, you're maybe 1 or 2 centimeters. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. Okay. So I go back home. The third time, these contractions felt way different. So I was like, no, this has to be it. Like, this has to be it. And the third time, my husband was moving slow, because we had already been to the hospital 3 times. And he was like, look, girl, I'm not about to rush. Like, he was not in a rush at all. He was like, okay, I'm going to take you. He's still washing some dishes, straightening up around the house. But the third time we go, I was actually 6 centimeters dilated. And so this is where COVID comes in. Okay, so I'm 6 centimeters dilated, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to the hospital because these contractions are so strong. And I want an epidural. I had decided that. I was like, that's it. I'm going to get an epidural. I'm not doing this natural. I got to 6 centimeters, noble. I'm getting an epidural. But because of COVID, I couldn't go and get an epidural right away and be admitted into labor and delivery until I took a COVID test, and it came back negative. So I'm in this labor and delivery room. They couldn't really give me anything for comfort. I'm still laboring, still having contractions. And they're like, but oh, no, we can't put you up there and give you an epidural and go through all of that until you test negative for COVID, or you take the COVID test. Now, if I would have tested positive, Chris would have had to leave. I would have given birth, I think, in a different section of the hospital. They do, and I gave birth at Northwestern, and I live in Flossmoor, but I traveled to Northwestern because it's the best hospital in Illinois. just like objectively. So look up the hospital if that's important to you, as it is important to me, because I've been to hospitals in the south suburbs and I have not had a good experience. So I knew I was going to give birth at Northwestern. I had toured the facility. I took all my classes there. I'd met lots of the nurses in labor and delivery, interviewed several of them. I don't know if it's the lawyer in me or what, but I was like, I wanted to feel very comfortable with the hospital that I was going to. And the food around Northwestern was very good, which was also important to me because I knew I couldn't eat during the laboring process. And I had planned to have Gibson's after I had my baby, which actually did happen. So that's the first part of where COVID reared its ugly head in terms of hospital policies being different. You go in, you're laboring, they test you for COVID. The test itself. Now, I'm already having contractions, labor pain. I'm already uncomfortable, and I'm irritated because I was 40 weeks when I went into labor. 40 weeks! Okay, like not 38, not 39, 40. 40 weeks. I was so tired of being pregnant. And my pregnancy overall, so the whole pregnancy, I was super positive. I was like, this isn't that bad. Pregnancy isn't that bad. This is great. This is going to work out. And the last 2 or 3 weeks were just like, I am just over this, between having to be in the house, not being able to go and do the things that I would ordinarily do for comfort. So I couldn't get no prenatal no prenatal massage at the Four Seasons, like none of the things that I enjoy doing. It's very first world, I know, but I'm just telling y'all the truth. Okay, don't judge me. I like massages. I like doing what I like to do to relax. And I'm an active relaxation person, so I have to do something to relax. So I couldn't do any of that. The last 3 weeks were rough. I was ready to go. I was ready to meet my daughter and whatever. So you get there and then they're like, no, you got to be tested for COVID. The test itself it was pretty bad, but it was only 15 seconds. So they stuck something really, 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 really far up my nose, and swirled it around, and I just counted to 15, and then it was over. And then they took the test, and they said it would take 2 to 3 hours to get the results, which meant I was just in that room, this little bitty room, laboring for 2 to 3 hours. And the way that I learned to labor for the classes that I'd taken and all that stuff was like, even at home, we had a birthing ball, we had these massage tools we were using. I was walking around. It was a lot of space. I was crunching on ice cubes. You couldn't really do that. You had to stay in your room. You couldn't walk the halls or do anything like that. Pre-COVID, you could have done all of that. So I didn't have any of those comfort measures to make it a little bit better, but I'm waiting on the test. It came back under 2 hours, and it was negative. So cool. Now we get to go up to labor and delivery. Chris was able to come with me. And he's now, because of every hospital will have its own policies. So you should be really, really, really clear on the hospital's policies. Yes, Marquita, wow. So you have to be really clear on the hospital's policies, but every hospital will have different policies. However, because when Chris got in that room with me, that first room, that we were told he couldn't leave. So he had to stay with me in labor and delivery. He couldn't leave, go get something that we left at home and come back. So you had to make sure your hospital bag was really, really packed. And he was expected to wear a mask the entire time he was there, as was I, until I tested negative for COVID. So once I tested negative for COVID, I didn't have to wear a mask through laboring and through delivering. Chris still had to wear a mask the entire time he was at the hospital. And the doctors and the nurses and all of them wore masks the entire time that they were servicing us. Okay. So that is what it was. So I didn't have to wear a mask after I tested negative. Everyone else had to wear a mask. And that's because your mask doesn't protect you from anything. It protects all others around you from from you talking or doing anything that could infect the air. Probably not the best medical diagnosis. Hit up a doctor for that. But basically, that's what I was told. So I didn't have to wear masks. I was negative for COVID. So negative for COVID. Woo, that's good. And I'll tell you this too, because I know there's some people watching who are like, oh my God, what if you don't take the test? Those masks are hot, girl. They are hot. And here's the crazy part. Had I tested positive, for instance, there was a possibility I would have had to wear a mask while laboring, while pushing, while doing everything in the hospital. So could you imagine? I couldn't imagine wearing a mask I was in labor for like over 22 hours. So I couldn't imagine being in a mask for that long. The longest I've been in a mask has been like 15 minutes if we go for a walk around the block. So, my heart goes out to moms who have to go through that experience. Even Chris, it was hard for him to wear a mask for long extended periods of time as well. They weren't as strict on enforcing that with him, I will say, but for the most part, he always had to have a mask. There were some that were like, I'm not coming in, Chris, put on your mask. So he was compliant with that. But keep that in mind. And the real issue with all of this, or the biggest issue for me with all of this was, that is a good question, Sequina. No, the question was, did they test Chris? No, they did not test Chris, which is wild because I thought that was the whole point. But no, they did not test Chris. And I guess it's because there's a shortage of tests, but they are thinking of that. They are saying that may change as time goes on. So that may change. Another thing, the nurses were great. They were really nice. They were kind. They got me water. They did what they could to make this as good of an experience as it could be. So they did what they could do. So I'm in labor 22 hours. I'm 6 centimeters dilated. I went back and forth about the epidural. So when I got there, I wanted it, but then I waited 2 more hours and I was laboring without it. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can go natural again. So then when I finally got in labor and delivery, I was like, I want to wait 2 hours before I want to try to do it all natural. So let's see where I'm at in 2 hours. I labored for 2 more hours. They came back in. They checked me. They was like, you still only 6.5 centimeters dilated. Like, you have not moved along at all. So at that point, I was like, nope, it's been too long. Give me the juice. So they did give me an epidural and I think a little bit of Pitocin. And with those doses, they can start off small and it can go up and all that type of stuff. So you have some control over that. So keep that in mind. They were monitoring me and the baby. I didn't like the monitoring stuff, hooking me up to all that stuff. So I asked for intermittent monitoring. Depending on who your doctor is, that's something you can ask for, and maybe they will or maybe they won't do it. But after several more hours of laboring and having contractions and all that type of stuff, when I did it on my own, I felt everything. After I got the epidural, I basically just went to sleep because I had been up for a long time at that point. So I went to sleep, woke up, they checked me. They said it wasn't time yet. I went back to sleep. They checked me. They were like, okay, it's time for you to push. Now, this is why I like my doctor. Let me tell y'all about this delivery experience. So when they say it's time to push, number one, it was very peaceful. It was not a lot of people in the room. It was me, Chris, my doctor, and one nurse. That's it. That's it. We bought a Fire Stick to the hospital. So this is something that was not on anyone's, what to bring when you go to the hospital list. But when we toured the hospital, we checked to see if our Fire Stick would hook up to the hospital room because we didn't know how long we'd be there. And we wanted good TV and good music while there. Because with the Fire Stick, you can have Pandora on, everything else. So we bought a Fire Stick to the room. When they were like, it's time to push, we put on like Ty Tribbett's Pandora Station or something. And we had a few labor and delivery playlists that you all helped me to create. So we put on the music and my doctor, I start pushing and she's like, yes, sis, you're doing good. And it was great. It's hard to explain, but she was so encouraging. She was so just awesome about the whole thing. When a Chance the Rapper song came on, I think she quoted Chance the Rapper at some point during my delivery experience. It was awesome. So I pushed for about 2 hours and 2.5 hours, and Christelle was there. Now, here's the thing, guys. They had told me that I may have had to have a C-section because the baby was measuring large, but that would have been an elective C-section still. So I was like, no, I want to try to have her naturally. After an hour and a half of pushing, they were like, well, you're making progress, but maybe not as much as we'd like to see. So you may still have to have a C-section. I didn't want to have a C-section because everything I'd researched said it makes the recovery longer. I don't know if I have not had a C-section, so I'm not sure how that recovery is, but I didn't want to go through that. So I just started pushing harder and she came out. And the thing is, she was large. Christelle was born at 9 pounds, 9 ounces. And so that happened. I pushed out a 9-pound, 9-ounce baby, but it worked out. Chris was with me. He was holding my hand during the whole time. He was giving me massages in between pushing sets, because it's like a set. So I'd push for 15 seconds, take a break, push for another minute or so, take a break. I don't remember the times because I think I was like, I don't remember the times, but it's done in sets. So that all worked out. Christelle came out. That was fine. But I think overall, having Chris a part of the process, having him know like what to do, what massage techniques to do, what to do to make it more comfortable for me, all of that type of stuff was really helpful. And then having a doctor that was just so down was just super helpful too. So encouraging. She was just awesome. And that made it a lot better. So after Christelle was born, they took her for a few hours to run some tests. Chris couldn't go with them, which I think is also a little bit different for COVID. Typically, you're able to go with your baby, from what I understand, at all stages of the process, but they restrict a lot of that during this time as well. So if they take your baby somewhere, you may or may not be able to go, depending on where exactly they took her. They didn't take her to the NICU, they took her somewhere else. And I think because of that, we weren't able to go. So she was not with us for like the first 6 hours of her life. Sequina, woo, child, you are the GOAT. We weren't with her for the first 6 hours of her life, and then they brought her back to the room, and for the most part, we were with her after that. I spiked a very small temperature before giving birth, so they wanted to give her some antibiotics and monitor her and do some additional testing, and so all of that was fine. Now, here's the other thing that I wanted to cover on this video. I hired a pediatrician prior to giving birth because once you give birth, you want to have a pediatrician ready to go so you can ask any questions to them. Because of everything going on with COVID, I didn't want to go into a pediatrician's office. So I had a girlfriend of mine that exposed me to something called concierge pediatricians. Now, I did not know this was a thing, but it's a thing. So you can pay a monthly fee, almost like a membership fee, and then you get your doctor's cell phone number. You work directly with the doctor, and the doctor comes to you. And you text your doctor. You don't have to, I don't have to call an office. I text her pediatrician directly. And when I gave birth, we text her right away. She knew the doctors at Northwestern, so she just called them and checked up on our baby, gave us updates, explained. So the hospital was explaining labs, but they were rushed, right? It's like they were quickly explaining what was going on with our baby. But my pediatrician, it was a true concierge service. Okay. She was texting me like, yes, this is what the numbers mean. This is what you need to know. I've already checked in with the pediatrician that you have at the hospital. She's told me this, and the people at the hospital knew our pediatrician because they came in and was like, oh my God, you all use Dr. Price. She is an outstanding pediatrician. You all should be ready to go home. And I think we went home within 24 hours. I was ready to go. Like, the pediatrician had already told me, look, you want to get home as soon as possible. You don't need to be in that hospital. You had a birth. You're fine. Have them check you, check your vitals, go home. Now, if something would have been off or the baby needed extra care, we would have stayed. But we went home within 24 hours. So I gave birth to her on Tuesday. We were home Wednesday at late afternoon with our baby in tow. So that was a good thing, too. So with this whole, and then our pediatrician came to our home to see her within 24 hours of her birth. So we still haven't left the house. Like, we went back home. We haven't had to leave the house to do any of her visits. So that was helpful. So for those of you who live in Chicago, it's very common. These concierge pediatricians, they're in Chicago. There's about three practices in Chicago that do this. For those who live in the suburbs like me, I haven't found it. There was no concierge pediatricians out here. So I had to speak with her. I use Willow Pediatrics. I had to speak with her and work out a special arrangement for her to come out here. Special arrangement, i.e. money, for her to come out here and see our baby. So that's been good overall. But I think once COVID lifts, I don't mind going to the pediatrician's office. It's way cheaper. And you can use your insurance because these concierge doctors, they don't take insurance. So you're paying pretty much out of pocket for all of that. So that's something to consider, because I know that was a big thing for me, was like, what pediatrician do we go to? How are we going to find a pediatrician? I didn't want to go to a hospital, etc. And I think things are hopefully getting better from what I can see from the governor's updates that he's doing every day in Illinois. So I think by, we've committed to her for at least a quarter after that. So May, June, July. After July, probably in August, she may start going to a regular pediatrician. So we'll see. But I do like the service I'm getting from her right now. So that's something else to keep in mind. Now, the other thing is, with breastfeeding and all of that, it's just a lot. Correction, insurance does not take them. Yeah, okay. Well, whichever way it goes, I pay out of pocket. Okay. And I will say this, though. for our vaccinations and things of that nature, she can run those through insurance. So those things are covered. But for the most part, those membership-based doctors, you should assume your insurance is not going to cover that. Similar to a doula, or if you were to give birth at home. So that's something to keep in mind. Like, you want to have a pediatrician and all that stuff ready to go. Interview them beforehand. That's important. Anything you can do to make yourself feel more comfortable during this time, I would do if it's feasible for you to do, for sure. For sure. If it's feasible to do, I would for sure do it. But when Christelle got home, you know, and then the other thing, the pediatrician is also like a lactation specialist. So she tried to help with the latching and all of that. For the most part, I exclusively pump. So that's how we were doing it. When I first gave birth, I was supplementing with donor milk, which is a thing that I learned about throughout this journey. Essentially, it's pasteurized breast milk from a donor bank. So if you can't give your baby your milk because you all are separated or whatever the reason, you can use donor milk, and then after that, you can use formula. It's whatever you'd like to do. I pay out of pocket for the donor milk. I thought that was also very expensive. It was like $20 per 4-ounce bottle. But she wasn't on that long. My milk came in relatively soon after she was born, probably 4 or 5 days. My milk was already in, but it was easier to give her the milk after that time. So now she's exclusively breastfeeding, which is a good thing. But it's just overall, it's just a lot. What I was not prepared for through this whole thing was the fact that I give birth, which is a huge hurdle, and then you have to like take care of this little baby 24/7. So you're just so sleepy. I was just so sleepy. I'm so sleepy. like that was, I think, the thing that I really did not prepare for the most was how much happened in a short period of time. Thankfully, though, my husband's home. His company gives great paternity leave, so we are able to really share duties. Really share duties. We have shifts, and we both have been able to get a little bit of sleep because my mom has been able to help out. The other thing I was worried about was like, will I be able to have anyone help out because of what's going on with COVID? So we made the decision to have my mom, and only my mom, be able to help out, meaning actually be in the house and help out with the baby, which meant for her, my mom committed to being on strict quarantine for the month before the baby was born, and really, really strict 2 weeks before the baby was born. And we talked to our doctor about it. That was something that they suggested as well, was like, make sure she's on strict quarantine before the baby is born. So everyone has to make their own decisions about that. But I'll be honest, I would not have been able to start the recovery process and it go as well as I believe it's gone without my mom being here helping me out. And it's been a beautiful thing talking to my mom about this process and about becoming a mom, and her sharing with me about her mom. And it's just been some of the most precious moments for me, being able to share them with my mother. And I don't take it lightly. And I'm so grateful to God for that, to have my mom with me to do these things. It's just not something that I take for granted. But I do think if you have someone who can be on strict quarantine and you talk to your doctor about it and you pray about it and you're comfortable with it, having someone, even if it's just one person, is really, 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 really helpful. Like really, really, really helpful. So that's about it about my birthing experience. I don't know if you all have any questions. Feel free to tag a new mommy who has questions about giving birth during this time. But I'll say this, guys. There's a lot out there about, baby blues and postpartum and all these things that can happen to you. And I will say, when my baby first came home and she was just crying so harshly, I didn't know what was going on. It was really because she just needed more food. When the pediatrician came, she changed the game. Like, she came to our home. She had a baby scale. She had donor milk, like, ready to go. She had everything that she needed to make me feel comfortable as a new mom. So that first visit with the pediatrician was like worth the money that I'm paying her, because she made me feel secure. She had stuff for my baby to make my baby feel better. She just was ready to educate both me and Chris on everything that we needed, and that helped. But there were a lot of emotions that did happen. So it wasn't like I wasn't all like, oh, this is the best experience ever. I was really, really tired, really, really sore, still on pain medication and all that other stuff. The epidural was still flushing out of my system. So there was a lot that went on, but you, as a woman of faith, through all of this, as a woman of faith, I have listened to gospel music. I've listened to things that will uplift me. I've listened to sermons that will help me. I have limited who I've talked to those who are going to be positive, who are going to speak life into me. I have spoken life into myself. I've spoken life over my daughter. And I think that regardless of if you're pregnant during this time, regardless of if you are you're isolated because you have to be isolated, being positive is going to get you through this. Like, you have to be positive. You have to be positive. And there's going to be times when you don't feel positive. And I think that if you can stretch past your feelings and tap into your faith, you're going to have a better experience. And it's okay sometimes to feel down and out and et cetera, but being positive throughout my pregnancy was the thing that I think helped me to really enjoy it the most. And having an awesome husband also helps. I wanted him to talk about his experience as well, but he's with the baby. We both can't be gone at the same time. Okay. So that's that. That's my experience. If you all have any questions, please do let me know. Yeah, Tamika says, I love the transparency. This will definitely bless someone else. I pray so. There were also like a lot of tears when I first got home too. I think I just was very overwhelmed, and I didn't really know what was going to happen. And it's just all new, and it's still all new. But it's week 3. She'll be 3 weeks Tuesday. I feel a lot better. I am also an entrepreneur, so I can't totally shut off work. I'm not really working. Like, I haven't been in my office in a month. I run everything from my phone at this point. I have a really great team of lawyers and assistants and law clerks and paralegals that have helped out to make this work. But the other thing is, for me, I check my email. There are people who are going to be like, you should be on bed rest or stuff. That's not who I am. And I knew that if I had a pregnancy that would allow me to be who I am, then I was going to be who I am. I check my email. I don't work. I haven't gone in the office. I haven't done laborious work, but if my clients email me, I'll email back. It's not much going on. I mean, if the baby sleep, I try to sleep sometimes, or I try to take naps, but if I'm up, I'm up, So that's that. That was my experience giving birth during COVID. Hopefully it's helpful and answers some of your questions. As a recap, have a great doctor, learn your hospital's policies, find out what are the different paths your pregnancy can go down, have a solid pediatrician. There is a thing, concierge pediatricians. Look into whether that's an option for you. If not, find out your pediatrician's policies about going into the office, and ideally get referrals for pediatricians from other people who you trust who also have kids, because that's going to be helpful as well. So that's that. I'm still recovering. I'm still on maternity leave, and I'm still working through what it means to be a new mom, and I'm recovering well. The baby's doing well. She's quiet right now, which means her daddy is crushing it on the feed right now. So I'm excited. But in terms of the joys of being a mom, I love cuddling with my baby. I spend a ton of time with her every day. She's my main priority right now. It's been a huge blessing being a new mom, and just like seeing the light in her eyes, seeing her develop and grow. She's a beautiful baby. She's a very good baby. She wakes up like once or twice in the middle of the night. Sometimes only once has been once. Normally it's twice in the middle of the night, but we feed her and she'll go back to sleep. Sometimes she won't. Normally it's with her dad that she won't go right back to sleep. With me, she normally goes back to sleep. So, I'm learning. I don't know what this will mean for who I will become as a businesswoman and an entrepreneur and a new mom, and how that will all mesh. I am committed to keeping God first, keeping family first, keeping God first, family lining up after that. Still letting my husband know how much I adore and appreciate him. We've snuck in some alone time together, believe it or not, in these first few weeks, and been able to go on walks and just marvel at the fact that we created life together. And it is a wonderful thing. And, I have fallen so much more in love with him through my pregnancy and through this process. And if I could say anything to anyone, it would be, if you're single, choose someone who you can build legacy with, but who will also really be a partner. Who will, when I say a partner, I mean like my husband is a partner. Like there is not a doctor's appointment he doesn't know about. And not only does he attend, but he's so actively involved in her development and in in the process. And I to give you a sense of his involvement in what, because men don't get enough credit. The great men don't get enough credit. I think they don't get enough credit. I always hear about, guys being bad and all this other stuff. I had a great father, but my dad it was a different time when we were babies. Now with Chris, he's, if she had the hiccups, he's looking up, what that means. Is it normal for babies to have the hiccups? I talked to him about pace feeding, and he's like looking up how to pace feed. And he's like, I think I'm doing better with pace feeding, and I'm learning different things about that. And he's a phenomenal man, and he has such great character, and I can trust him completely. And that feeling of creating life with someone who you can trust completely is, one, attainable. I want to get the message out there that's attainable, but two, it just makes me fall more in love with him. And I'm super excited about this parental journey that we're on, and the way he protected me during labor and delivery, and was there for me, and was, really helpful during that process, and so attentive to what I needed, it was beautiful. And it was just us. It was just us. And so I would have loved for my mom to be there. I would have loved for his mom to be there. But the memories that we have of it being us is also something very special that I will forever cherish. So shout out to all the great dads. Shout out to Jerry and Sequina. And I know Jerry's also another great dad who is soon to be a new father to a son, but not a new father because they already have a daughter. But yeah, so I wanted to share that experience with you guys, give you guys an update, because I've been MIA, giving birth and all that. So hopefully this was helpful. Tag a mom or a pregnant mama who may have questions about this. And you all have an awesome, awesome night. Thanks for joining.